The moment man devoured the fruit of knowledge, he sealed his fate. Entrusting his future to the cards, man clings to a dim hope. Yet the arcana is the means by which all is revealed. Beyond the beaten path lies the absolute end. It matters not who you are. Death awaits you. You cannot avoid death. To live is to die. They are one and the same.
What is your favorite video game of all time? And what about it makes it your favorite? Is it the story or is it the gameplay? Is the art style the thing that makes it your favorite, or is the music so perfect that it makes you ignore the issues the game has, no matter how glaring? Today, since we got out of the PS1 trilogy, we are on my all-time favorite video game. I mean, Xenoblade 2 is a very close replacement for my favorite, but that is for the far future. The development of this game came after the completion of Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne and Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil Saga. It had some interesting gameplay choices in development, like having battles take place in real time, but with the retooling of mainline's press turn system, we got this awesome game. This is my official introduction to the Persona series, and the game has held a special place in my heart ever since that first playthrough. It's to the point that I'm terrified to actually play the remake that's been out since February. I'm hoping it's good, but that Pharaoh's cutscene and the new opening is just not helping matters. However, we will get there when we get there. Upon release, the game was praised for being a fresh take on the Mega 10 franchise, and would eventually get a re-release entitled FES, both as a standalone and combined with the original game. The standalone is just the epilogue to this game called The Answer, or Episode Igus in Asian countries, with the combined port having both the main quest being called The Journey, or Episode Yourself, along with The Answer. After the release of Persona 4, we would get one more re-release entitled Portable, giving us our second female protagonist. And while I say that's the definitive way to play this game, I will primarily be looking at the FES port. I started with it, so I want to end this journey with it. Both the journey and the answer will be in this video, though they will be separated in the story section, but I will use gameplay footage of both FES and Portable. I will also include a quick look at the movies, to see if that's a decent way to experience the game if you do not like JRPGs. But with all that out of the way, my friends, the Endless Tower awaits us, with Shin Megami Tensei, Persona 3. Since the moment you hit start, as we follow a high schooler walking to his new dorm for the school year, attending Gekkoukan High. Though things aren't as they seem, as coffins appear out of nowhere and there's blood on the ground. You know, if you told me this was Detroit, I would 100% believe you. But once he gets to the dorm, he encounters a kid ripped straight out of The Shining and is asked to sign a contract, asking him to accept full responsibilities for his actions. This is a moment where you can name your character anything, but since we got some canon names, the MC will be Makoto Yuki, while the FemC will be Shiomi Kotone. I'll be primarily talking about her in the gameplay section, even though it's going to be a little limited because I got burnt out very quickly while recording footage, but I still gotta cover my bases. When things are all said and done,
no one can escape time. It delivers us all to the same end. You can't plug your ears and cover your eyes. And so it begins.
Who's there? Wait!
These two are Takaba Hikari and Kirija Mitsuru, classmates that live in this dorm. Makoto wasn't expected at this time, but Hikari shows him to his room. His new life at Gekkoukan begins now. In the next couple of days, he's apparently monitored during a time called the Dark Hour, an extra hour that normal people wouldn't be aware of. Well, except for a few, and one day, shit happens. During the Dark Hour, a character named Sanada Akihiko encounters a massive creature and leads it back to the dorm, causing a scramble. He and Mitsuru goes to fight it, while Yukari goes to get Makoto to safety. Though due to an issue with the back door, they head to the roof, only to encounter the monster Akihiko encountered. We're not dealing with demons anymore, my friends. We're dealing with shadows. And due to this, Yukari decides to point that pistol to her head. Well, in actuality, this isn't a pistol, but a device called an Invoker, and she uses it to summon her persona, Io, though she's a horrible shot, as this shadow, known as the Magician Arcana, slaps the Invoker right out of her hand. The Invoker gets tossed at Makoto's foot. He picks it up, takes a deep breath, and points it towards his head.
From the sea of thy soul I come. I am Orpheus, master of strings.
As soon as Orpheus is summoned, it mutates into another persona called Thanatos, and he makes quick work of the Magician Arcana. After this ordeal, Makoto passes out, and cut a couple of days later, Yukari's at his side feeling guilty about what happened. She does explain her reasons for why she's at Gekkoukan, and it's connected to the Korijo group, a company that owns Gekkoukan, and the reason why there was an explosion years before the school was built. Her father died during it, and she wants some answers, but any questions that Makoto has will come later. Well, technically now, since, well, story summary and all. A character named Ikutsuki Shuji explains about the specialized extracurricular execution squad, CEASE for short. While a random club for any school no matter the culture, its purpose is to destroy the Dark Hour. Makoto agrees to join the club, and a couple days later, a classmate named Iori Junpei joins the team, as he woke to a persona as well, the messenger of the gods, Hermes. These three are eventually taken to a giant tower called Tartarus. They can only go to the first floor at the moment, so it's a chance for them to get their feet wet. They can't map this place out due to the fact that it changes every single time they step onto a floor. Akihiko and Mitsuru are sitting things out for a while since one is injured and the other is providing support. They are persona users as well that awoke to Polydeuces and Penthesilea respectively. Over the next few days of exploring Tartarus, that same boy from the start gives Makoto a warning about a grave threat. Said threat comes during a full moon, as a powerful shadow has taken over the monorail. It eventually starts moving thanks to the shadow, so the gang only has so long to kill it. Junpei decides to charge forward for getting strength in numbers, but they all eventually meet the Priestess Arcana. Upon her defeat, the monorail is still going, only for a lucky guess from Makoto to stop it. The group continues their exploration of Tartarus, with Akihiko being cleared for action, but also learning about another possible persona user, Yamagishi Fuka, although she's too weak to handle combat, though she does end up going missing. After investigating for a bit, which includes going to the shady part of town and a reintroduction to a character named Adagaki Shinjiro, the group figures that Fuka ended up in Tartarus. This is also thanks to a confession from a bully, and in order to get to Fuka, they lock themselves in the school. When midnight hits, they're in the second block of Tartarus, and they eventually run into Fuka. She's apparently been able to avoid the shadows, and we soon find out why during another full moon. Mitsuru and Yukari are under attack by the Empress and Emperor Arcana, but by using the evoker Fuka was given, she awakens to Lucia, helping us take out these shadows. School life continues like normal, with Fuka joining the team as the official navigator and Mitsuru rejoining combat. With a little research, Ikutsuki figures that if they take out these full moon shadows, they could possibly eliminate the Dark Hour. Eventually, the story introduces us to Strega, a hitman group that operates during the Dark Hour. And they do have personas themselves, but at the moment, they're not really important. The next full moon comes and not one shadow is fought, but two, with first being the Hierophant, and then the Lover's Arcana. Fun fact, I was actually playing this part of the game when I was younger in the living room, with my oldest sister watching. She was laughing at the invokers, but when I got to the Yukari shower scene, yeah, it was kind of embarrassing, especially since she was trying to get me to select the options I gave in. Even then, after the fight, they return home, and Fuka tells Yukari that she has some information for her, as Strega watches from atop a roof. A couple of days later, during a meeting, we find out the reason to why Tartarus exists in the first place. After being called out for not telling us the whole truth, Mitsuru explains that all of this is due to her grandfather's want for power. Shadows are interesting beings, as they have power beyond your wildest dreams. That's what her grandfather, Kirijo Koetsu, wanted, the power these creatures have. He even somehow collected shadows for experimentation, though all of that quite literally blew up in his face. And the location where the experiments took place is now where Gekkokan stands today. Now this obviously explains Tartarus, and to reiterate, and this definitely explains the key to destroy the Dark Hour, taking out the full moon shadows. There are 12 in total, and they're already halfway done. But what's more important is summer vacation, as Kutsuki suggests that the group goes to Yakushima to blow off steam. But before that, it's exam time, although more importantly, a new persona user. Amada Ken, an elementary schooler that awoke to the persona Nemesis. No, not that Nemesis, although the poor bastard actually gets left behind when the gang heads down to Yakushima. And this is where we get introduced to Aigis, an anti-shadow weapon. She's a robot, but somehow booted herself up around the time the gang arrives on the island. And of course this robot has a persona. What are you, fucking mad? This is anime, my friends. Don't worry, things get fucking weirder. I mean, this is the same game that gave us our first Animal Party member. But anyways, she awoke into the persona Palladian. We also get a bit of an insight into why the Kurijo group was conducting these experiments. The company wanted to harness massive amount of power the shadows have into a fucking time machine. Although again, that quite literally blew up in their faces. And by watching a video message, we learned that no matter what, killing the full moon shadows is definitely what's going to bring an end to the Dark Hour. The vacation does come to an end, however, and a shadow decided to leave Tartarus for some unknown reason, only to be taken out by a dog named Kodomaru. And before you ask, yes, Kodomaru is that Animal Party member I was talking about, and he does have a persona. It's called Cerberus, and it's a good boy, just like Kodomaru. Mitsuru arranges a vet for him as the team prepares for the next full moon. When the time comes, Strega decides to lock them in with the full moon shadows, the Chariot and Justice Arcanas. I mean, we were gonna kill it anyways, but hey, maybe they were planning on us not having an exit strategy. We take out the shadow, and Makoto gets a very ominous warning from Pharos afterwards. Warning about some flowers or some shit like that. I don't know, I black out whenever that kid's talking. What's actually important is that Kodomaru is better and is set to help. Eventually, Ken does join the party officially, and with this news, Shinjiro rejoins the party. Before the events of the game, he awoke to the persona Castor, which, fun fact in Greek mythology, Castor is the elder twin brother of Polydeuces, which, is neat and explains ahead on both personas. Regardless, the next full moon boss comes around, and Junpei gets kidnapped, primarily because he was trying to talk to a girl. In fairness, there's more to it because she's a part of Strega, and you may think this was planned by the group, but no. Yeah, this was all coincidental. And Junpei legitimately developed an interest in her. He started bragging about what Seize is doing during the Dark Hour, and one thing leads to another, mainly her mistaking Junpei for the leader of the group. After the defeat of the Hermit Arcana, the others figure out where he is because he's being held on the roof of their dorm. Although they do stop Chidori from summoning her persona, Medea. Thankfully not that Medea, and she's put in the hospital. Mitsuru and Akihiko goes to interrogate her without results. That is until they allow Junpei to talk to her. She does open up, but one day her persona starts attacking her. And it's a good thing Shinji is there to suppress the persona, although when a typhoon hits their area, Makoto gets a cold and his mind is transported to the Velvet Room, for Igor to warn about a great tragedy. This is more for a gameplay mechanic since Igor offers new fusion spreads at this point in the game. But since Makoto is also sick during this time, we lose out on a couple of days. After his recovery, another full moon comes around with 2 shadows this time, although Ken and Shinji are nowhere to be found. They fight the Fortune and Strength Arcana, but after the fight, Akihiko realizes what day it is and goes to look for Ken and Shinji. When cutting to the place those two are at, we eventually learn the true reason for why Ken joined the team, and it's to take revenge on Shinjiro for killing his mother. Now, it wasn't on purpose, but it was something that was eating away at Shinji, to the point that he just tells Ken to kill him, although he gives Ken a warning, that if he does go through with this, he'll become just like him. Although a member of Strega named Takaya crashes the murder party trying to figure out who Seize's navigator is. He doesn't get an answer, but instead decides to ruin Ken's revenge by revealing how much time Shinji doesn't have. With that revelation, Ken lies and says that he's the navigator. Takaya aims his gun, but Shinji takes the bullet for Ken. Takaya goes in for another shot,
What is the meaning of this? Why would you risk your life to save this child?
Shinji!
How very disappointing.
Who's bad?
Shinji tells Ken that he's still a kid, that he has his whole life ahead of him, and he walks away to pass on. The next day, a funeral is held for Shinji, though after school, Akihiko goes to the memorial, just to let his heart out. Once he comes to a resolution, his persona evolves from Polydeuces to Caesar. Though because Ken tried to kill Shinji, they need to figure out how to deal with him, although they can't really do that with him running away. But Akihiko finds him the next day. Letting his hatred go, Ken goes back to Cease, with Nemesis evolving into Kalanemi. During the night, Pharaoh gives Makoto another warning about the fall, since it's drawing near. At school, Fuka's friend Natsuki, yes, the bully, announces that she's transferring school, and after their heart-to-heart, Fuka's persona evolves into Juno. We come to the last full moon, but first we need to fight Strega, which doesn't take too long because they're actually piss easy. Although I don't think I mentioned their personas. Well, Takaya has Hypnos and Jin has Motos, although I'm pretty sure I pronounced that name wrong. We then face the hangman Arcana, and upon its defeat, Cease did it! The Dark Hour is no more.
We did it! We saved the world! The Power Rangers are over!
The next morning, Pharaoh greets Makoto and tells them goodbye. Cease celebrates at the dorm, even with the chairman of the Kirijo group, Takeharu, who's Mitsuru's father, kind of forgot to mention him, joining in on the festivities, even taking celebratory photographs. But the story section is far from over because yes, the Dark Hour is still a thing. The bells of Tartarus start to ring, as Akutsuki betrayed us all. Well, in actuality, he's been acting in bad faith from the start. He has Aigis reprogrammed to knock out all of the human Cease members, and force them to T-pose on metal. In actuality, they're non-fatally crucified. Akutsuki worked on the same experiment the Kirijo group was conducting, but instead of harvesting their power, it was supposedly to bring about that fall Pharaoh's mentioned. Although he's just a crazed cultist, planned on sacrificing Cease to bring about this fall, he gives Aigis the order to kill Takeharu, but since Aigis can't do it, both him and Akutsuki shoot each other, although Takeharu is fatally shot, and Aigis is ordered to execute everyone else. But she can't. Another side of her fights back the programming, and she frees Cease. Kodomaru goes to show how much of a good boy he is by stealing the remote controlling her. Akutsuki ends up falling over the tower, and the next day, everyone is at a loss for words. But they continue to go through training to face whatever it is that may come their way. Although Fuka gives Yukari a disc revealing that Akutsuki somehow edited the video Yukari's father made. The 12 Shadows should have never been defeated. And with the final message he left for Yukari, her persona evolves into Isis. It's a good thing I'm a really small YouTuber. Regardless, eventually another transfer student is introduced, and that's Ryoji. And he's just in time for the class trip. During a heart-to-heart on the second day of the trip, we get another awakening. Thanks to a slap from Yukari, Mitsuru's persona evolves into Artemisia. Jin and Takaya eventually breaks Chidori out of the hospital, and we have a very piss-easy fight between her. Though with the result Takaya didn't want, he shoots Junpei, but thanks to Chidori, he's revived at the cost of her life. You know, sometimes I wonder what the story would have been like if this hospital scene was, real. But then again, I guess I just wanted Junpei to be happy. Fucking bro deserves at least that much. Although his persona does evolve at this point into Trismegistus. Fucking hell, why did I actually decide to say all the persona names? You know what, fuck, it doesn't matter. So you guys remember that transfer student? Well, he's actually a shadow, the 13th shadow of the experiment. Aigis actually fought him before, that's even when she met Makoto for the first time, because she somehow sealed Ryoji into him. Although in the here and now, Aigis attacks him, but to no avail and needs repairs. Ryoji spills his guts to the group, but passes out. When he awakens, he tells the group about Nyx. She's pretty much the harbinger of death, and if she awakens, all life will vanish. Though Ryoji gives us two choices: kill him and go into death with bliss for ignorance, or fight a battle that may be fruitless. He gives the choice up to Makoto in private, and if you do go into the bad ending, yeah, it's pretty depressing with everyone but Aigis forgetting about things. Yeah, it's fucking tragic as all hell, but I don't understand why they forget about Aigis. But hey, we're not going for the bad ending, we're going for the good ending. And before that, Aigis' persona evolves as well, as she found a new purpose in life with her new persona, Athena. With Ryoji returning, we make our choice to face Nyx, and he tells us that on the 31st of January, she'll be at the top of Tartarus. The game makes their way up to the top of the tower to face Nyx once and for all. But first we need to face her avatar, where we learn that the Arcana is a means by which all is revealed. They fight the avatar as it changes Arcana, starting with the full Arcana, all the way to the Death Arcana. For beyond the beaten path
lies the absolute end. It matters not who you are. Death awaits you. You cannot avoid death. To live is to die. They are one and the same.
Once they defeat the Avatar in the death state, the Avatar flies into the moon, stating it's too late to avoid the fall. With Nyx revealing her true form, she forces the team to their knees with her power. They use all their strength to stand, but it proves to be fruitless, until the bonds that Makoto has made comes together to form a new shining star. The Velvet Room arrives to its final destination, as he rises into the moon to confront Nyx. The rest of SEES cheers him on, protecting him and healing him, until he's able to create a miracle. Utilizing the rest of his health, Makoto casts Great Seal on Nyx. The Dark Hour vanishes, with SEES forgetting about the past, but Makoto still has his memories, and goes one by one to everyone he's made a bond with for one last moment. On graduation day, Makoto and Aigis goes to the rooftop. Aigis herself discovers the meaning of life, and she tells Makoto her new resolve. During this time, the high school members of SEES remembers the past, and more importantly, their promise to meet on the rooftop during graduation. As Makoto eventually passes with a smile on his face, ending this episode. So question, what was the first game that told you video games can actually tell stories? For me, technically it was The Last of Us, as it did take me a while to get through this game. Now while that had amazing moments like Ellie's boss fight against David, nothing really stacks up to the moments here. The biggest scene that comes to mind is Shinji's death, because this kind of fucked me up as a kid. Actually, I had to stop playing for the night because I just never expected a party member to die like that. The funny thing is, there wasn't enough time for me to actually get attached to Shinji, but I think it's just more the buildup of the scene. There's uneasiness between him and Ken. Hell, Ken was the only reason why Shinji rejoined SEES. Though again, it's just the buildup right here. Shinji's warning to Ken about becoming just like him, then Takaya coming out of nowhere, willing to kill the both of them right there and then. Then the FMV kicks in and just hearing that gunshot. This was a masterclass of storytelling. Now, the only actual issue with this plot point is, well, they're in the Dark Hour. One of them could have just healed Shinji, I mean, considering the end to innocent sin, but I guess they were just in shock. Not only that, it seems Shinji was content with his end. I mean, he was taking persona-suppressing pills that are fatal from my understanding, so it probably didn't matter to him. His request to Akihiko for him to take care of Ken and him telling Ken that, he still has his whole life ahead of him was just great. It's a shame that he's not a part of the team for that long, as I do deem him to be a fantastic party member, especially on a character front. And if I'm going to be honest, gameplay as well, because having just one physical focused party member, it kinda sucks. Hell, it's probably the reason Atlus keeps including him in the Q games, but also gives us the ability to save him while playing as Kotone in Portable. Which, side note, I heard some people don't like this plotline or Chidori coming back to life, but I don't know, it feels like it still fits with the theme of death. I don't think Shinji awakening from a coma, if you gave him back his pocket watch to unfortunately Blue Ball Aigis, fucks over the meaning of death, mainly because I think he has a new lease on life because of Kotone. Would an awakening from a coma that should have killed you, do that to you? And with Chidori coming back to life, while fucking corny as it was, she doesn't have her memories, so yeah, the old her is still dead. The game isn't just about accepting death, but about appreciating the people in our lives, the connections we make all the way up until our death. And while yes, sometimes friends split apart because, that's unfortunately life, having those memories with you as you go into adulthood is the most important part. Hell, the biggest reason why the death angle was taken was because of a news special the director watched, where it was a bunch of elementary schoolers being asked about death. Almost every one of them said that they could come back from it, so using the gaming medium was a great way to drill this message in no matter what you believe. That death comes for us all in the end. And that's really it. Inspiration comes in some very interesting spots. And to focus on the story, all the emotional moments here just hit right. Akihiko talking to Shinji's memorial is always a favorite of mine, just hearing his reasons for wanting strength. Talking to the memorial just to get his feelings out, it's great. And since it's on the top of my mind at the time of writing, I know some people are going to say that this is a show, technically a game, so it's not a good idea to tell. Now, I say this because, again, at the time of writing, Avatar: The Last Airbender's newest live action has just been released, and people saying that Aang talking to Appa about, being the Avatar really isn't a good idea with him just, stating what he feels at the moment. And I understand why people say that. Hell, the clip,
You can't just have your characters announce how they feel. That makes me feel angry.
is used for a reason, because unlike a book where you kind of have to tell since, everything is in words, it's best to show how the characters actually feel and not just explain their feelings right there and then. It's why people don't really like that moment in the live action Avatar. While this is still Aang, it's a new version of him that we have yet to see, so it's better to let his actions tell who he is. There are exceptions to this rule in my opinion, like here. This moment is a fantastic example of it, trying to work through things in their heads. And another great example is in Kamen Rider Dragonite. A Kamen Rider fans like to write off, but trust me, give it a chance, it's way better than Ryuki. I'm not fucking kidding, I will kneecap you if you don't watch it, although to provide context, during a pivotal point in the show, a character named Lin is talking to himself in the mirror, trying to figure out what the best course of action is at the moment. Hell, even contemplating whether or not to vent, very long story, his friend and ally Kit to protect him from what they're going to face. Moments like these can work, like it does here, it's just the execution. What also helps this scene is that this is the first time we see a ultimate persona awaken. This is something I hope future Persona games include, because second awakenings should not always be through social links. Like, I literally love every awakening here because of the resolution these guys come to. They really never miss a beat, and I love all the triggers for all of these awakenings, especially Junpei's second awakening, seeing his anger towards Strega and just throwing all that fire at Jin. It just hits you in the heart. Fuck, as a kid, I wrote off the whole sketchbook thing, but nowadays, just scrolling through the cutscenes for the recap and watching it in earnest for the gameplay, seeing how much Chidori cares for Junpei, it's just fucking heartbreaking. The dude went from a cocky guy to more of a humble person wanting to help his friends. Ken went from a kid full of anger to someone willing to move on from his loss. Fuka, a girl whose family life isn't ideal, wants to protect her friends. She's a very forgiving person to the point that she actually forgave a bully and became friends with said bully. It says a lot about her nature. Yukari's resolution from her father's final message to move on and fight for what she believes in, and not only that, but helping Mitsuru through her loss. I just love these scenes. And I just love this game's story. When I first played it, I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. I originally wanted to play Persona 4, but not being able to was the best thing that ever happened to me. There's no wasted time in this game. That's something I really hate in JRPGs, so it's the main reason why I don't like Xenoblade 3. It's actually not don't like, it's just absolutely cannot fucking stand. I don't know what people see in Xenoblade 3, but hey, that's for the future. But this game is masterfully crafted. It has great pacing, and I think the calendar system helps out a lot with that. It allows them to really flow things together, the serious moments, the cooldown moments, and the character moments. From a simple eliminate the shadows turns into a story of betrayal and manipulation, then into a story about death. Not just accepting it, but again, appreciating the life that you have. This has a fantastic narrative, one that I'm not good enough to fully pick apart. I don't think age would help with that. I mean, I'm like 25, so yeah, maybe if I was 40, I could give this a better pick apart, but even then, I just love this narrative. Each emotional part still gets to me to this day, and I tear up at everything. Hell, to go back to the start of the analyzation part, it wasn't just Shinji's death that got me to stop playing for a bit, but Ikutsuki's betrayal. A man who seemed like a aloof but well-meaning guy turned out to be a crazed cultist, hell-bent on bringing the end. What this game does, it does it perfectly. I may have went and gave a full rundown of the story, but trust me, just play this game. I don't care if it's vanilla, FES, or portable. Actually, no, wait, that's a lie. Play portable. Just ignore the other ports, unless it's like that Full Moon mod. But this is a story you need to experience at least once in your life. The social links in the game are fantastic, with the only misstep being the Moon and Devil social links. To get the better one out of the way, Tanaka, while a greedy fucker, at least does something good at the end, donating cash to charity. He may do it just so he can, get people to take care of him in old age, but, it's still something good. Although, I kind of feel like this is supposed to be a joke, and if it is, well,
I get it. It makes me laugh, but I get it.
Although in fairness, paying attention to this social link reveals that Tanaka's childhood may have been pretty shitty, so I can kind of see why he got his obsession with money. Nozomi, on the other hand, no. Fuck him. I checked out of his link at rank 3. Who the fuck really cares about this fat ass over here? When he kicks it, it's gonna be from a heart attack, and it's gonna be fucking funny watching his brother laugh at him for such a pathetic death. Wow, I did not think I would get that heated. Now the rest of the social links I do definitely like, one of my favorites being Akanadi, the dying man that represents the sun Arcana. Seeing him develop the story about the pink alligator, and its ending message about others finding meaning in your life, whether or not anyone realizes it or not, it's, pretty sweet. The star social link was Mamoru, a kid who doesn't have the best life, but eventually leaves town to help support his family because of the hard time his mother has since, the death of his father. Hidetoshi, a hard ass and stickler for the rules, who comes to realize that he needs to be more compassionate towards people, especially especially with the way he catches the smoker at the end. Chihiro is one of my favorites just because she's a shy, possibly nervous wreck that slowly comes out of her shell with the help of the protagonist. Characters like her tend to be my favorite, but I really don't know why. But aside from that, these links are pretty neat. The only one outside of the obvious two that I didn't really like is the Frenchie that represents the Temperance Arcana. That's right, Bebe, a French exchange student who is eventually asked to go back to his country thanks to a death in his family. To persuade his uncle, the one who asked him to come back, he designs and crafts the kimono in an effort to be allowed to return to Japan. On paper, it's neat, but I would be lying if I said I care. The same applies to the Hermit Arcana, represented by a player Makoto meets on an MMO called Innocent Sin Online, that goes under the screen name Maya. Technically, this is Makoto's homeroom teacher, Torifune, but it's more because you're just hearing her vent out her frustrations with her life, which in fairness is neat to see, but at the end of the day, I do not give a shit. The big reason is because I don't know the rest of the teachers, so her venting to Makoto doesn't really mean a thing to me, not even her declaration of love towards him. In fact, I really don't buy it. There's plenty of couples that meet in MMOs, but this one is just... why? You know? Like, outside of her having a crush on Makoto without realizing it's Makoto, it's like, I don't care. But even then, the social links are pretty good, especially when it comes down to the C's members, because it enhances their personalities and gives them more background. Whenever I played 4 and 5 for myself, it never felt like the proper story gave the supporting cast that much development, reserving it for the social links and social links only. Now granted, it's been a while since I played both of those games, both their vanilla and re-releases, so the cast in those games probably got development outside of the links, but whenever I think back to them, it just felt like Tales of Symphonia or Xenoblade 3. Games that I really cannot fucking stand because a good amount of development of the characters were behind optional fucking quests! Though I will talk about my issues because I plan on giving Symphonia a second chance. I felt like I was like way too hard on the game because at one point I felt very burnt out by very poor design choices, but hey, we'll get there when we get there. Although I hope I'm just misremembering things. The calendar system allows for a perfect balance of the character moments and overarching story as I already stated, but regardless, as the first adding with this new system, the stories aren't bad. Again, the only ones that aren't good are the Devil and Moon social links, but they were probably trying to figure out what stories to write for those two and got burnt out, especially since they have to fit things into the meaning of each arcana. Although shit, I think I'm forgetting something at the moment. Oh yeah, that's right. The additional social links with Skotane are neat to look at, especially with the male members of C's. Just being able to see how they tick is fantastic, and I feel like Atlus thought not having social links with all the party members was a missed opportunity, since they include links for every single party member from 4 onwards. Even then, I do love getting to know the rest of C's better. Mitsuda getting the taste of the commoner life because of her sheltered upbringing. Not sure if sheltered is the right word, but considering she's never really been to a fast food place, yeah, sheltered may have been the right word, but just seeing how different her world is to the others and the trials she has to face with what's expected from her is neat. This is actually my first time going through her social link, because I've never bothered looking it up before, but considering the timing of everything, like her father's death, it's neat to get an insight into her, especially her thoughts on love, since during rank 4, she reveals how her parents got together, it being arranged, but with them coming to actually love each other at the end. And she has to eventually grapple with an arranged marriage herself. Kind of wish I went through this link beforehand, because she always seemed like the strict one of the group, but now I see that she actually wants some sort of freedom. Hell, she says it herself with the reasoning for her getting her motorcycle fixed. Fuuka is a interesting one, as we see in the story itself, she wants to be somewhat helpful to the group. In fact, it's the catalyst on why she wants to start learning how to cook, wanting to repay her friends in some sort of fashion, and you know what, it's fine. While I'm not the biggest fan of the social link, I do like Fuuka as a character. Though the only thing I wish they did was lean into her mechanical side a little more. They did that with the dancing game, since there is an event in Moonlight and Starlight where she and Futaba are able to communicate somewhat, not to mention that she wants to start a tech club at school. Even then, it's a fine social link, though Yukari's link on the other hand, well, to this day, I'm not really sure how to feel about it. She doesn't want to be relying on men, that much is true, because what we saw with her and her mother, throwing herself at different men after the death of Yukari's father, but eventually she is willing to put more trust into Makoto, eventually even starting to understand her mother to, you know, some sort of an extent. With the social links with the ladies being an automatic romance, this one feels a little more natural than the others, but I think that's due to the answer, but hey, I did like this link at the end of the day. I guess it's a new girl to get a social link, although I feel like it's slightly pointless. It's to be very reductive, just like her arc in the main story about her becoming human, but this is more of a supplement to her arc. The old lady and cat in the story further helps her understanding about human life and her worry about the end of everyone else. It's neat, but I could have taken this link or left it. Fucking hell, it's actually weird that the only link I went into depth with is Mitsuda's link, and she was never a favorite of mine, although I am forgetting about the men. Well, their stories are alright for the most part. Considering where I am with recording footage, I am pretty burnt out on Persona 3, but I did like their stories for what they were, especially Kodomaru. Yes, really, it's neat to see how much care he had for his previous owner, him opening up as he realizes Cease can't replace his old owner, but you know what, that's okay, they're still his friends, and what more do you need for a very, very good dog? Unironically, Kodomaru is my favorite Persona character ever, but that's because I'm horribly biased towards dogs, and I will never state otherwise. It's actually the sole reason why I'm watching the anime Wonderful Precure. Also, unless you want to lose your knees, watch Wonderful Precure. But to stay on track, getting more insight into the guys, more specifically Shinjiro, is great. This is something the remake wanted to correct because of the new hangout mechanic that I've seen, but what we got for the most part is pretty good. Though I will say the rest of Kotane's social links I didn't really care for. Some of them are exactly the same as Makoto, except with Kotane's personality. But the ones exclusive for her that isn't tied to C's, I kinda stopped caring about them after a while. Hell, I just started spamming the circle button to advance the text and not screw myself over in character choices. Sorry if anyone wanted me to really talk about them, but again, I just did not care. They're not bad, it just felt like a chore to get through some of these. I think it's only because the new characters kind of feel out of place. Like, I know this is the same exact art style, but they don't look like they belong, and it just bugs the shit out of me, and somehow breaks my immersion. Idiotic, I know, but that's seriously how I feel. And with all that out of the way, we still have the final story to go through, and it's a tad bit controversial. Before the answer was released, it was kind of left up in the air whether or not Makoto actually died at the end, but this story actually confirms the death. Not only that, but there's a confirmation of one of the social links being canon. And here's the thing, before I say anything about the story itself, I hate that Yukari's social link is pretty much canon. If you go back to the previous video, it's the same reason why I don't like supplementary material being canon. You have to take into account of people not being able to watch or play something. My argument kinda gets shot in the foot since the lover's social link was there from the start. However, all these social links are still optional. Even then, not everyone's going to be able to get to everything, or even complete them when playing casually. Is it that big of a deal? No, I guess not, but it still bugs the shit out of me. Regardless, we left episode Yourself with the journey, so it's time to see the answer with episode I Guess. And it starts with a brawl between her and Akihiko. As we can see, things have gone to shit after the end of the game. After cutting back to the present day, we learn that the dorm is shutting down. The evokers are being collected, and what's left to see celebrates the end. I say what's left because outside of the obvious death, Yukari and Akihiko aren't at the dorm. Ken makes mention that it's weird for Makoto to just straight up die, since the doctors couldn't find anything wrong with them, but let's face it, people unfortunately just straight up die. But when the group goes to sleep for the night, it's actually revealed Aigus can literally sleep and her dreams somehow stopped appearing. Although what's more important is another anti-shadow weapon appearing from underneath the dorm. This is Metis, my friends, and she's equipped with the persona Psyche. She goes to try and kill the others, but Aigus defends them, and her persona somehow reawakens to Orpheus. Now this begs the question on how. I mean, on a gameplay level, it's so you can change personas again, just like before, but in a story reason, I honestly don't fucking know. I'm guessing it has a connection to her memories of Makoto, but after Aigus blacks out, she gets the Velvet Room spiel, and upon awakening, she's modified. She apparently would have been able to survive without these upgrades, and we see that Akihiko and Yukari are on the scene. Although with a quick talk, it's revealed that they're in a time loop, thanks to something called the Abyss of Time, a large desert with doors, and each section has shadows just like Tartarus. They go to explore the place and encounters a strange humanoid shadow, but getting to the end of each section, we get to see a flashback about the various members of Cease, until they get to the final door and meet a shadow version of Makoto. Upon the defeat of it, along with the most random of FMVs, Keys appears in the hands of the Cease members. They can do one of two things with them: leave the dorms or use the keys to travel back in time to try and prevent the fall once more, which leads to a tournament to decide which option they take, where Aigus and Metis comes out on top with the keys fusing together. There's a middle ground they take after this, where we see what exactly happened at the end of the fight. Makoto became the seal that keeps Nyx at bay, but she's not the true evil. Said evil are the ones calling for Nyx, as she's just a force. Nothing good, nothing bad, but upon defeating Erebus, the creature trying to get to Nyx, the gang can finally leave the time loop. Metis is also revealed to be a part of Aigus that was casted away from her mind. After this revelation with a brand new lease on life, Metis returns to Aigus. Instead of Aigus going back to the lab like she planned, she continues going to school, and I don't know if it's burnout on Persona 3, but I really don't care for the answer. Like, it's something bad, but it's just unnecessary. If you couldn't tell from this being 16:9, I didn't bother recording the whole entire thing. I just couldn't be bothered to care after a while. I got enough of the gameplay section, so that's good enough for me. But for 3 hours of story, it's fine. But this is bogged down by 30 hours of gameplay. I can agree that all this dungeon crawling can help with the theme of depression going on with Aigis, but thinking about going back through all of this, hell, even for that collab channel I'm hoping my friends and I can start back up, I just find no need to follow up with these events. I mean, it's cool seeing how Akihiko joined Cease, how Mitsudo awakened to her persona, but I think time is used on stuff that just didn't need to be there. Considering the name of the game this time around is a grief process, I would have rather saw how the rest of Cease is dealing with the death of Makoto. While he wasn't really there to touch everyone of Cease, they were still his friends, his comrades, so, you know, why not go the full 9 yards? Then again, I just don't feel like this was necessary. I may talk about certain parts separately, but there is a gigantic balance one has to make with the gameplay and story, and considering it can take a while to get to certain points of the game because some dumb motherfucker places a teleporter after each floor boss, seriously, that pisses me off so much because my first playthrough, I kept running out of SP, I had to go back up to the fucking doors and had to run all the way back down to the fucking thing. I just get burnt out after a while. It doesn't help that the hook for this isn't as good as the main game. The build up with the monitoring and then being tossed into the fray with the Magician Arcana, all this is great. Being bored by exposition by Aigis and out of nowhere Metis appearing, I don't care. In terms of the biggest issues a lot of people have, well, for starters, I kind of find it understandable with Yukari. Again, her social link is confirmed canon. She and Makoto were dating, so it seems understandable that she would act this way. Not sure why Mitsuda goes along with it, but hey, they made a pact with each other, so yeah. But the other plotline about Makoto getting a second chance of life, I mean, it's never gonna happen considering how hard it will be to change the whole entire fucking world, but it's more for like a sweet sentiment from another person Makoto loved. I'm not sure how to feel about this plot point in general, but at the end of the day, I can make the same argument about Shinji and Chidori coming back to life, or awakening from a coma for Shinji. But even then, I think going into the answer immediately after the journey was a horrible mistake. If you played the original game or just got done with the remake, give us some time before jumping into the answer, because you will hit burnout pretty quickly. Maybe one day I'll go back to this when I'm not completely burnt out, but I don't know. I don't think I'm in the right headspace. I mean, just look at me. You can't tell, but I'm going batshit insane. Even then, let's just jump into the gameplay before I snap. So we went down from 5 party members to 4, and while that may seem like encounters can be harder to deal with, it's more than manageable. Now, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, Lucifer's Call if you don't use freedom units, was already out during this time, so instead of the auto battle system the 2 duology used, we went back to more traditional turn-based with press turn twist. If you exploit an enemy's weakness or hit them with a critical hit, you knock an enemy down. Knock all of them down and you get one of my favorite mechanics in any JRPGs, the all-out attack.
I've been waiting for this!
Man, I fucking love this system, trying to get the shadows knocked down just so I can unleash the beatdown on them. This is just fantastic, especially when combined with the 1-mores. Knocking down an enemy with a weakness or critical will give a party member an extra turn. Don't think he can get infinite turns, mind you. Hit a down enemy again and you'll lose your turn. I love the risk versus reward that the game gives you because the same exact thing can happen to you if an enemy exploits your weakness or gets a critical on you. This is just a very fun mechanic, though it's odd that you need to knock down every enemy with a multi-targeting move to get a 1-more. It's strange, but what's even stranger is that if you hit a down enemy again, especially with a weakness or critical, they for some reason get back up. Now, you would think this will keep them down, something that Persona 4 in this game's portable release would address, but it's really the only misstep to this battle system. Well, outside of one of the strangest decisions done with the vanilla and FES's party that you can already see, but I don't feel like talking about it at the moment. Now, the downside is, whether or not you're playing as Makoto, Kotone, or Aigis in the answer, the devs decided to have these 3 be the only ones who can change their persona. While this may seem like a downgrade, I personally don't mind it. I found it to be a tad bit of an annoyance worrying about persona for 5 different characters, especially in the PS1 ports of the trilogy. This wasn't a game breaker, mind you. It's the reason why I never brought it up during those games, but just having to worry about one character is definitely preferred. Now that I think about it, that's probably the reason why I clicked with Nocturne. Just having to worry about the Demi-Fiend made things fun. However, during battles, you can only change your persona once per turn, so you have to ask yourself if it's the right time to change your persona. And the same applies to the all-out attacks. They're not always worth it, because if an enemy is knocked down, they will lose their turn by getting back up in vanilla and FES. Now keep in mind, in the same ports, you will also lose a turn when knocked down, and thankfully, the enemies don't get all-out attacks. although the game does encourage you to go straight for the all-out attacks, especially since when analyzing enemies, after a couple of turns you can see all the weaknesses and resistances. This is the only game to tell you outright, and I'm personally not a fan, only because it kinda trivializes the all-out attacks. Every other mainline Persona game encourages you to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. It's much easier with the PSP port of the PS1 trilogy because for the indicators, but I think it's just better to have the navigators remember what works and what doesn't, like how it is in Portable. But how it works here is just personally not preferred, especially since during bosses it will tell the party what they're weak to while not telling you. Well, except for the Emperor and Empress for, well, obvious reasons. And while I'm not a fan of the game just outright telling you the weaknesses and resistances, I do love oversights like this. Like, how the fuck did they miss that? Especially when making the FES port. Now, no matter what, the name of the game is still changing out your personas regularly, but now since party members are stuck with only one persona, you need to figure out who to take with you because you're locked to only having 3 party members with you. Although this can be a pain in the ass, because for some reason reserved party members don't scale along with the rest of the team. Now this was added to Persona 5 to take advantage of the perks of the Start Social Link, but you would think this would be added as early as this game. I may have compared Megaten to Pokemon, but now you gotta treat modern Persona as a fusion between the two. The Megaten aspect comes with the protagonist, as Orpheus is made purposely bad to get you to swap him out. I mean, considering he has a weakness to both electric and dark should be an indication of that, but your party, they're your Pokemon. Just, you know, without the catching. A party member's persona will continue to grow throughout your adventure, and considering they have different weaknesses and resistances, you have to pick and choose who you want to have with you. Maybe Kodamaru is not the best choice in this scenario, so you want to swap him out with Junpei instead. But if you had Kodamaru in the party longer than Junpei, you will be spending time leveling him up. Now thankfully there is a system that gives reserved party members a tad bit more experience to balance things out, but that still doesn't fucking help. I mean, it does to be a tad bit hypocritical like right off the bat, but this is an annoyance thanks to the tiredness mechanic. In the main game, if you explore Tartarus for a tad bit too long, characters will get tired. I mean, they're up after midnight, it's not hard to see why, but this is a way to stop the player from exploring Tartarus for too long. It's not a mechanic I particularly like, but one I understand why it's implemented. Although they did change how it works in Portable, but in short, going from the top from the different conditions a character can be in, the Great condition has higher accuracy and a critical hit rate, Good is just normal, Tired will miss more often, take more damage, and takes a while to get back up, and Sick is essentially hell. Just take the Tired stat and multiply it by Cancer. That shit sucks. It goes away from resting, but this is more of an annoyance than anything else. I'm not completely sure how it was changed in Portable, I just know that instead, the clock at the entrance is your limit considering HP and SP doesn't refill after returning to the base. Though I will say it's fucking weird not having HP and SP not refill after you level up, like it was in the PS1 trilogy. I don't know why I was expecting it to, because, you know, I played the shit out of the modern games, but yeah, it's just fucking weird for it not to. Though just in general, I do understand why the tiredness mechanic was implemented. It does not mean I have to like it. Now to get back on track, I just wish everyone scaled accordingly, especially in the answer where there's no breaks in the abyss of time. Cycling out characters is pretty much the name of the game with this stuff, especially when you already know what the bosses are weak to. It's bad, but it's manageable. At least this game does encourage the swapping out of characters, unlike Persona 4, but hey, we'll get there when we get there. However, I let it go for long enough. The biggest reason why I cannot recommend Vanilla or FES is the tactics menu and the lack of ability to tell your party what to do. Now this is a controversial gaming mechanic to the point that I'm pretty sure a majority of players fucking hate. There is a mod to allow direct commands for FES, but keep in mind it kinda makes the homunculi useless. And I was originally going to emulate the game to take advantage of it, but in general, the reason why I and a lot of people hate it is that these guys are the biggest fucking idiots you could ever see in your fucking life. In the main game, you start off with 4 commands, but gain more over time. In the epilogue, you have all of them from the start, but in Portable, well, I have no clue. I just put them on direct command because I do not want to deal with the headache of Mitsuru casting Madakana in for the 50th fucking time.
Obey my command!
Again, you only have 4 of these available to you at the start of the main game, while gaining more during the course of the game. While I may not like this system, it would be more than manageable in the main game if you had all these options from the damn start, like in the fucking answer. The game wants you to plan ahead, that much is definitely apparent, especially if you hit R1, R in Portable, because that will tell you the turn order. So giving commands like this to the party isn't a bad idea on paper, but when put into practice, it makes me question how these guys were programmed. Akihiko can learn all of the debuff skills, but I've never seen him use these skills when set to heal and support. Now granted, he probably has in this playthrough, it's a little hard to scroll through footage, especially since I don't write down timestamps like a fucking moron, but he doesn't do anything useful. Hell, for Boxer, he only has Sonic Punch, a physical skill that only does light strike damage. You would think he would have more physical skills, unlike Junpei for some reason, but yeah, this is just not a fun system. The AI just does wasted actions, like I want them to do this, but they just don't make any smart moves regardless of what command they're given. Now don't get me wrong, the game is more than playable, as this is the first version I played and beaten, but dealing with this system just makes me want to commit Persona 3 at times. If you're playing portable, then there's no real issue. The game will give you control back. You do have to set it individually, but man, this makes things a hell of a lot better. Personally, just stick with portable if you want to experience the original game legally. Now for the fights in general, well, more specifically the normal fights, they're a tad bit stronger than I remember. Although now I am recording on normal because after my Signalis video, recording on easy does not get my point across that well, but half the time it's just a battle against the AI. It's possible to manage, but it can be frustrating when you just want to straight up grind. It feels like there's way too many enemies that can just straight up curb stomp you into oblivion. Tiaras, giant wheels, lions with a ball and chain, and not to mention Hulk Hogan using Shadow Clone Jutsu. You'll easily run into enemies that can just kill you without a second thought. I feel like they could have toned some of this shit down because I did have plenty of game overs when I just wanted to grind. Triply so since I was following a guide for FES to get all the social links maxed out. And I need a cache for the arcades. Although now that I think about it, each bout themselves are actually fine. Thankfully in vanilla and FES, as stated before, the AI, while still completely idiotic, can still get the job done. Although the major bosses are a bit of a letdown, especially since they barely have any resistances. Now don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of them that do. The Emperor and Empress Arcanas are bosses that will get you to pay attention to it, but I mean, outside of that, you can just, lay the smack down. Especially if you want to go for a physical build to the MC or have party members with you that focus on physical skills. Look, I was paranoid this time around with every boss, but looking back at my footage, it was really only the Emperor and Empress that gave me any issues. Although the Fortune Arcana did give me issues as well, but that's only because of the damn roulette reel. If that wasn't there, then yeah, this would have been a cakewalk. But even then, I was just underleveled for the Empress and Emperor, and every other boss was a fucking cakewalk. This goes double for Strega because none of them actually puts up any fight whatsoever. I was actually shocked at this during my first playthrough. Rival Persona users are not to be fucked with. Before even playing the PS1 trilogy, it was something I kinda figured. Now that I did play them, characters like Kandori, Mask Circle, Shadows, and Nyarlathotep are actual challenges, with the PS1 ports. But every member of Strega fucking sucks. I do find it funny that every mini-boss is an actual challenge, especially since if you hit some of them with a weakness, they don't take a lot of damage. The game forces you to change up your party for a diverse moveset in mini-boss fights and mini-boss fights only. For instance, take the Arcane Turd, a sub-boss in the journey, and while it's weak to ice, it's not going to take a lot of damage from that element. The game wants you to use both ice and wind attacks against it, since it takes more damage to wind. It's actually funny to think about because you would think the mini-bosses wouldn't be that big of an issue. Well, it's still an issue, but more than manageable. But all of the actual bosses, they are just pushovers, especially if you're keeping up with your levels. Well, then again, that goes without saying. And that's actually the only reason why I kept dying towards the Emperor and Empress Arcana. I was pretty underleveled for that fight, but hey, I was still able to make it through in the end. It's really just a lack of resistances. As mentioned not 5 seconds ago, they may be trying to avoid you constantly knocking down the bosses, but if they handle them how they handle the mini-bosses, then that will make these guys a little more interesting. This is a new trend that 4 and 5 will continue to do, not having weaknesses or resistances on the bosses aside from light and dark, and it kinda sucks the strategy out of all of this. Now in fairness, Persona 5 Royal tries to correct this for the most part by trying to remix the bosses, and all I can say here is that an attempt was made. But again, this applies to the journey and the answer because each floor boss in the answer made me bite the curb. Now granted, for some reason they always dodge a certain element if they have a specific dodge skill like 100% of the time, but even then, every other boss, while they're in the journey or in the answer, wasn't an issue. The only actual challenge in this game that's a proper boss is a Nyx's avatar, but that's because of how much HP he has. It's primarily a war of attrition, considering he has 25,500 HP. It's less than the possible 27,000 HP that Nyarlathotep had in Eternal Punishment, but damn, Nyx is an actual fucking challenge. Not only does he have every elemental skill available to him, but he also halves all damage during the death phase. And he also includes 2 skills that I really do not fucking like. The first is Moonless Gown, a barrier that, if attacked, deals a base 500 damage to anyone who tries to hit it. I really only hate it in vanilla and FES because, well, There's no guard option because whoever thought to include AI-controlled party members had more dumb ideas. The only way to keep your party alive is by setting them to wait, but if a character dies and they're revived, they're set to the end of the turn order, meaning after Nyx goes is when their turn happens. They can and will get themselves killed if they use any physical skills, because now physical skills use HP instead of SP. That can mean instant death if their HP is 500. And this is what makes the AI party not fun to deal with, especially not with Moonless Gown. Not only that, but characters don't always use the skills you want. For instance, I brought Junpei for both Nyx and the Hangman Arcana. At the Hangman, he was at the level to have the skill Turn Shot that deals light pierce damage to one foe for 2 to 4 hits. He never used any of these skills and didn't use skills like Gigantic Fist or Deathbound until I got him in the 70s against Nyx. Yeah, I had to do Nyx multiple times. In both boss fights, Junpei was set to full assault, and while I'm glad he was only using his attacks, since I have no use for skills like Raypatra, he wasn't using the skills I wanted him to use. And this is the reason why I recommend people to play Portable, because you are smarter than these fucking bots that don't make the smartest choices. Also, not being able to save these dipshits from Moonless Gown is hell. The other skill that I really fucking hate is Night Queen. It is the bane of my fucking existence. Because who thought it was a good idea to have this fucking attack give random status ailments? From charm, distress, fear, doesn't fucking matter. If it hits, be prepared to reset the game. I've had too many game overs because of this. My very first playthrough was on easy because I really did not know what I was getting myself into. At the time, I really only knew the basics, but when you add in the charm status, I go from having fun to an aneurysm. I do love strategizing on how I should approach certain situations, but when I get hit with charm and all my hard work goes away, I just stop having fun. Like, full stop. Fuck, I'm glad Nyarlathotep didn't have this in Innocent Sin or Eternal Punishment, because all my game overs was due to this. A party member gets charmed and goes on the attack, and it's always me they attack. Or hell, Yukari, the party member I'm pretty sure we all use as a healer. She has used the Irahan on him multiple fucking times, and thankfully on the Death Arcana, the max HP is only 6,000, but I am at the end of my ropes. It's a great challenge up until that point, but fuck, this just isn't fun anymore.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
The only thing that makes the bosses better is the portable port. And look guys, I know I already said it like multiple times, and at this point I'm just beating a dead horse. And I also understand that there's a decent amount of people who actually like the tactics menu, but there's also people who think Power Rangers Dino / Cosmic Fury and Avatar Sentai Dawn Brothers are good shows, so their opinions don't matter. Jokes aside, I just can't stand the tactics menu because I do not like swapping back and forth in the menu trying to keep these fuckers alive. I have a game plan in mind, but I feel limited because of it in vanilla and FES. In Portable, I don't feel this limitation. Now granted, they do add things that kind of break the game, like the co-op attacks, taking fatal hits, etc, because all of that was built around Persona 4's combat system. It's nothing egregious as going from Metal Gear Solid to the Twin Snakes, I'll explain one day but not now. However, if Portable did not have those, it would make this port perfect on the gameplay front. Telling everyone in my party what to do is what keeps them alive, but trusting them to an AI that I'm pretty sure has a fucking line of code missing only serves up frustration. Every boss felt much better with this option, and before people say shit, I played this on the hardest difficulty on Portable. I had some moments where enemies took a crowbar to my kneecaps, but hey, at least it was all on me, and not an AI who thought it was a good idea to cast Martin Karin for the 50th fucking time. This is just hell on earth. The tactics menu is neat on paper, but just doesn't work when put into practice. Maybe if we had all the tactics from the get-go, like the fucking answer, then maybe I wouldn't be as livid as I am now. Now, one thing I didn't mention are the fusion spells, and while I find them to be better used here, I actually didn't use them that much. The main reason why I say it's better is because you just need 2 different personas to cast these skills, and it's easy to figure out what personas you need because it's either connected to mythology, mascots, or references, but there are no incentives to actually use them. Hell, for some reason they become items in Portable where the high SP cost is more than enough to balance things out. There's also no need to worry about a party member falling and being unable to cast a fusion spell. Something that happened to me way more often than I'm willing to admit. I think the reason why I barely use them is because there's only 18 in this game compared to the duology where they had a healthy dose of fusion spells for all elements, physical attributes, support, and persona base. I'm not saying that these are bad, just that it's underutilized, to the point that I don't even think the devs deem this mechanic necessary anymore, as this mechanic is dropped in Persona 4. It does make a return in the remake, but it's limited to this theology mechanic from my understanding. But as I've been saying a lot in this video, we'll get there when we get there. While I prefer how it's handled here, I just don't really find them necessary. Now, while I did use footage from Portable, I haven't fully went into its gameplay. Now, I'll go fully into it with the next game, because this battle system is essentially 4's battle system. Now, the main reason why I do prefer this version of the game isn't just because of the direct commands, but being able to change party equipment on the fly and heal in Tartarus without having to awkwardly talk to your party members. Now, technically, you could heal yourself, but if you're low on SP and Yukari has some, well, you're an idiot if you went to the clock at the base. Look, I only mention this because prepping is a fuck ton easier in this port, especially when you can see everyone's equipment 24/7. I believe the devs wanted you to make use out of the split up mechanic because in vanilla and FES, the AI will replace their equipment. But what if you don't like the split up mechanic and barely, if ever, used it? Well, get set to write things down and figure out what you want to equip people with what. It kind of makes sense on why the weapons and equipment are a tad bit expensive at the shop. I think the game wants you to focus on yourself, but it really doesn't seem like that because Tanaka's shop carries shit for Kodomaru and Aigus as well. Not to mention, I found shit for Kodomaru and rare chests in the last block of Tartarus. This also doesn't help if you want to keep these guys in special costumes included in FES and Portable, because for whatever fucking reason, they're armor, and they will be unequipped if they find something else. Fucking hell, just play Portable if you want to play the original version legally. Battles feel much better and you can plan things out easier. Though, again, more on this when I fully talk about Persona 4 since this version's battle system is 4's battle system. And also because, to be candid, Burnout is a motherfucker. It's primarily the reason why there's not a lot of Portable or answer footage, because I did not imagine I would hit Burnout as easily as I did when I was planning to use footage from FES, Portable, and the answer. Fucking hell. Know your limits, kids. That's all I can fucking tell you. A minor aspect to Portable is that Makoto can only equip swords as opposed to every human weapon. On a programming side, that was most likely a pain for the devs, so now it's just one weapon per character. Swords for Makoto and Naginata for Kotone. Now, no matter if it's vanilla, FES, or Portable, the best part about the battles is that there's no more contacting. And you may ask, how would we get new personas? And it's simple. This is a game that introduces shuffle time. It's typically triggered whenever a bout ends with an all-out attack, and I believe exploiting the enemy's weaknesses constantly. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure, as I've had shuffle time triggered after using the rush option, but to be honest, I really don't care. This mechanic triggers constantly, at least for me, so I don't have any complaints about it. During shuffle time, you can find the 4 minor Arcana cards and new personas to be used. The Sword Arcana will give you a weapon, the Cup Arcana restores health, Coin Arcana gives you cash, and the Wand Arcana gives you experience or boost your persona stats. Sometimes, more specifically in Portable, there are blank cards that give jack and shit. There's also a chance for a double up, which is essentially another shuffle time, but get a blank card here and you get nothing. Not even the first card, and that does hurt if you're trying to build up the compendium. In vanilla and FES, the only shuffle time you'll see is just, well, cards shuffling around. You have X amount of cards that get shuffled around and you have to pick the one you want. But in Portable, you also have the one where cards fly around. Hit X when the one you want is right in front of you. But yeah, this system is perfect. No more spell cards or tarot cards, my friends. We just straight up get the persona this time around. There's no nonsense, and once you have the new persona, you can use it straight away. Some of these personas are not the best, but they can and will get you out of a jam or get you a new persona that can lay the smackdown. I just love the system, but it's not here for long, as when 5 comes around, it's dropped for contacting. Because life fucking sucks. In all seriousness, shuffle time is just my preferred method, as in mainline games with a compendium, and in Persona 5, I just stop engaging with the contacting system. Hell, the only reason why I put up with an internal punishment is because you need those new personas, or else you're going to eat shit. I just never bothered talking because I do not know what these demons want. And shuffle time makes it so I don't get screwed over because I don't have to worry about an Oni that's probably going to bail on me after giving it over 1 million Maka. That's not a lie, mind you. In one of my runs of Nocturne, that actually happened. Don't remember the demon, but I do remember giving up half my life savings. Although you may have heard me mention a compendium. Well, this is the Persona Compendium. All of the persona that you have ever had is registered in this book, and you can buy them back at any point in time. Not with tarot cards, but with actual cash. And it helps that the material persona can give a new persona skills. There is a restriction to this, because certain arcana cannot learn specific skills. I'm not sure how this restriction really works, though it's something to keep in mind. The downside to this is that you cannot select the skills you want on a persona. Any skill that can be transferred to the new persona is randomly selected. The only way to change the skills is to close out of the fusion and reselect the material persona. It sucks, especially nowadays since there's most likely mods to allow you to select the skills, but if you're playing on original hardware, this is annoying. You would think the modern release of Portable would give us this option, but it doesn't. And it's fucking odd considering the modern Nocturne ports gives us the option to select skills. Look, casually, especially on normal, this isn't going to be that big of a deal, but on higher difficulties, it becomes pretty damn near essential to get a specific spell on a new Persona. When Persona 4 Golden comes around, this becomes a non-issue because that game will allow us to choose skills from that game onward. Though to be honest, I'm not sure if a mainline game introduced skill selection before Golden, but regardless. What we got now, again, it's just annoying, though I will say, completely hate that you don't get access to the compendium until after the first boss. And it sucks, but what sucks even harder to the point that'll make your father jealous is that you don't have it available to you in the answer. Here's the thing, in games with a compendium, I don't like fusing things away if I don't have access to the compendium at the start, because I may need it for a social link, or more specifically for the answer, if a persona still has use in the current area and is needed for another persona that can help. If you want a specific persona you cannot get in shuffle time, the only way is to obviously fuse it. But you have to spend time getting the persona that acted as material back if it was still useful to you. And this sucks. Again, in modern day, most likely a mod for the game to reintroduce a compendium to the story. But damn does it suck not having one, especially for any hard items. You no longer return personas to get items, but come across personas that may have a hard item. When the final skill on that persona is learned, they will give you an equipable item. Now, I actually like this mechanic, especially since if I want to stick with this persona for a little while longer, I won't have to get rid of it to benefit from any items it will give you. On the other hand, I barely bothered with any return items anyways. In the run of Eternal Punishment I did for the last video, I didn't know I had a Hiranya, a multi-use item that restores a moderate amount of HP and SP, and to this day I still don't know what persona I returned that gave it. It's not a bad system, and from my understanding it does make a return in the remake, but I just don't bother. You can get some pretty good items through this mechanic, but I really wouldn't care if this came back in Persona 6. Other than that, I just hate not having the compendium available in this mode. I'm guessing they wanted to limit the grinding of hard items, but maybe have the cost for Persona be higher. I mean, it's already stuck on hards, so why not rip that band-aid off? But regardless, there's no real complaints about hard items. Although the exploration of Tartarus in the Abyss of Time fucking sucks. This is the issue with the new dungeon types. It is completely random. Yeah, that blurb about characters not being able to map Tartarus out, yeah, that wasn't flavor text. That's the truth. Each floor, except for mini-boss floors and the end of each blocks, are random each time you go on them. And it's fucking mind-numbing half the time. While I love this game, running through this place is very fucking dull and gets repetitive way too quickly. Technically, if you want to be an ass about it, AJ, all games are repetitive, but a lot of them don't make it feel like it. Here, you're just praying that you get to a staircase half the time, and you'll probably lose your mind after the 50th dead end. Personally, I hate randomized dungeons, and it doesn't help that the next game will keep the randomized dungeons going. Although, the randomized dungeon in 5 is technically, with massive air quotes, optional, but again, not really, though we'll get there when we get there, but I just hate the randomness. Now, you can mitigate the monotonous dungeon crawling by having your party split up, but personally I don't recommend this for multiple reasons, and the first one is that they can still get in fights. If a party member is unlucky enough to run into a pretty strong shadow, or vice versa, you may be down a member or eating shit, because life is like a box of active grenades. Not even worth it, even if you do want to grind, because there is an option that says exterminate shadows. Less party members means less experience to be split across, but thankfully if you set things to explore and they find a staircase, you can just go straight to the next floor. Now that I do love, but that doesn't mean they can't get unlucky. Next, they'll just pocket any cash they'll find, because they do buy their own items, but if you're struggling for cash, then that's no good.
What's this? Oh, it's only money.
Huh? Hey, some cash. Nice.
Now granted, I believe they give you it in Portable, but outside of that port, I just want the cash. Like seriously, I need to go to the fucking arcade. Finally, if you want them in a specific piece of equipment, as mentioned earlier, then they'll equip what they find. Look, this would be a fucking footnote in this video if there wasn't a chance of these dipshits getting caught on walls, then encountering a fucking shadow. Thankfully, it has only happened to me once, and if it happened to me in this marathon, I would have fucking lost it and tossed out all my Persona merch. Ah, fuck my life, time to get the fire pit ready, but in all seriousness, this is the only game to do this, and I'm fucking glad. Keep in mind, however, you can't explore the same floor for too long, because eventually the Reaper will show his ugly head. A grim reminder about the impending doom that comes to us all. But in gameplay sense, it's just a way to get you to move on to the next floor. There are more ways for the Reaper to appear. During some of the shuffle time footage y'all saw, there are penalty cards, signified with a skull and dark aura, and if that's picked, the timer for the Reaper is shortened. But it's also shortened on special floors that either have no shadows, all-powerful shadows, or more than usual. If you're strapped for cash, then the last option may be your best bet. Just make sure you know where the exit is, because gold shadows are pretty much everywhere. I don't mind the Reaper as it forces you to get a move on, however, if you pause the game, it doesn't pause the Reaper timer. I remember when I tried to have my VTuber channel be a Let's Play channel and I booted up Portable to do a Let's Play of it. I stopped the recording session in Tartarus, paused the game while exploring, and came back only to hear rattling. I don't know if this was an oversight or anything like that, because it happens in all ports of the original, and it fucking sucks. I really would not have mentioned this if at least one of the ports actually paused the timer when the game is paused. But in short, while I have a love-hate relationship with the main gameplay, battles in vanilla and FES can be completely mind-numbing when dealing with the AI. And it has some very odd design choices for navigating Tartarus, though that's just one half of this game because it's also a life simulator. You're only allowed one action per time slot, well, except for Sundays, and this isn't going to the store and then boom next day. No, I'm talking about studying the new social links, watching movies, going to a shrine, hanging out at a store, or going back inside. Because the devs have never forgotten their wallets before, and this is a mainstay, mind you. Once you leave the Dojima household or LeBlanc and head back in, you just got screwed over by time. Although oddly enough, this does not apply to leaving at night, and it's weird. This doesn't help that the Hermit social link for the male route is only available in the dorm at his laptop, because you unknowingly talk to your teacher in an MMO. But fucking hell, it's an odd thing to take up a time slot. And you know what, I would not be complaining if I wasn't following a guide to try and get every social link. The guide I use says Hermit no matter what on Sundays. Completely forgot about it. Walked out. Yeah, no, it sucks. And what sucks even more are the social links for the male route. Vanilla, FES, Portable, get a romanceable social link up to a certain point, and you can't go out with other women for a while. Thankfully, Maiko isn't a part of this for multiple obvious fucking reasons, but considering how petty this feels, I would not be shocked if at least Yukari got jealous of it. Although as someone who has interest in dating Japanese women, I did learn that some of them find it odd for men to have women friends. But hey, that's besides the point, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. Getting back on track, this is due to the fact that Makoto automatically romances the women, while Kotone has the option to shoot men down. Thankfully in Reload you can shoot the ladies down, though some sick bastard shot Yukari down on the day her father died. But in general, I don't really understand this. Men and women can be friends, especially in high school, so I don't understand why this is a fucking thing. Now, if this happens, you can and will get a social link reversed. Fuck it up any further and a link will be broken, meaning the social link will never advance. And this is hell. Don't think this is exclusive to the male route going with romance, because this can happen to every single social link, and it sucks. There's multiple ways to reverse and break it, so double check the links from time to time in the menu to see if they got reversed when you haven't hung out with someone for a while. However, from my understanding, the game will not allow you to fuse personas of the corresponding social link if it's reversed or broken. To be able to keep the link going and fuse personas, you have to make up with them or go to the shrine apparently. It's weird, but even then it's not easy to do this. This has only happened to me like twice in my initial playthrough of the game. I fucked up during Yukari's route and didn't hang out with Yuko for a while. It's more of an annoying system and I'm glad 5 doesn't bring this back, though apparently it was going to be there because one of the devs is a psychopath. Social links do help you gain experience when fusing personas of the corresponding arcana depending on the social link's rank. Hell, in Portable, the full arcana gives you the same benefits you get in Persona 4's party member social links. But keep in mind, you do have to have your social stats at specific points before even starting some of these links. Now this is something I don't mind because social stats will rank up by doing specific actions that are right in your face 9 times out of 10. If you want to rank up your courage, it's easy. Just talk to the nurse anytime you're tired or sick and he'll give you some very weird medicine. The system will become a little more in-depth in the next game, but what we got here isn't bad and isn't intrusive. It's not going to restrict you from anything story related, and if you already played the main game on vanilla, you won't have to bother with re-ranking these stats up. You can use your save data from vanilla to do just that when booting up FES. I'm not sure if Portable allows this, but if it does, it's very helpful nonetheless. To be honest, I don't mind the life sim that is the other half of this game. I thought it would after playing the PS1 trilogy, but no, this is still a great part of the game. The only thing I really wish the game did was give any school-related social link a out-of-school location. As a fat ass over here is the only classmate that has an off-campus location. But then again, he's always at Polonium Mall, so why do I question this? Now, I only say this not just because 4 and 5 has classmates off campus, more specifically the teammates, but because if you want to get all the social links completed in one run, you can't rank up classmate social links during breaks. Granted, the story for some of the classmate social links, except for fat ass over here, revolves around the school itself, so it does make sense on why you would not be able to rank them up during breaks, although this is all still annoying. Though that's not me taking account of me wanting to go for 100% in the social links, but just because there's not a lot to do after getting all your social stats maxed out. Granted, there are some side quests for Elizabeth, something I never bothered to mention because you can only get certain items on one day and miss out on one of those dates with her and you can't do the rest. Though that's just one thing that I don't even remember if it takes up a time slot or not, and this will also require you to waste an action because you have to go into Tartarus to get certain items for her if you don't already have them. Even then, I do love the social links, not just for the side stories, but for the Persona experience boost as well. This becomes a little more in-depth in the next game, though I'll save my thoughts for that then, but the new social links does help this new era of Persona to stand out. However, I wouldn't mind if 6 goes back to pure dungeon crawling, but this is still a great part of the game, especially for the story reasons I mentioned in the story section. Though we are forgetting one other thing that I absolutely love about this game, and it's the FMVs. This game's FMVs have never and will never be beaten by any other Persona game. Seriously, these are absolutely stunning, and the original opening sets a very high standard. Its limited color palette and several shots makes this one of my favorite intros in the series. Portable's intro isn't bad either, though FES's intro is just a letdown since it's just a collection of cutscenes. Not to mention the remix of Memories of You is just horrible. But even then, just look at Vanilla's intro, it's phenomenal. The only downside to the FMVs are the ones that don't involve the Dark Hour. Now, given the fact that they occurred during normal time, I can't really complain too much, but when we do get into the Dark Hour cutscenes, they are amazing. The transition from the illustrations to the FMVs are solid, and I just love the green tone to it. It makes everything look otherworldly, or at least unnatural. Considering how the Dark Hour came to be, this works perfectly. There's a tinge of horror, especially with how they animate the lights. The pseudo shaky cam effect is something I love about these cutscenes. I am curious on how Point Pictures, the animation company that was contracted for these scenes, boarded some of these because the character placement seems off, but I think it actually benefits the eerie nature of the Dark Hour. In-game graphics, on the other hand, well, they don't really impress me as much. The sprites were more impressive in terms of animation, but the character models are a tad bit stiff, and that's really the only downside for me. However, the stills we got are still the best in the series, and no, that's not my bias talking. Seeing more of these characters allow for more dynamic poses and expressiveness, but in general, the game's presentation is fantastic, especially considering the time it was made. I do wish the in-game models had cell shading, which would have enhanced the game's presentation in my opinion, but hey, as it stands, the game looks great. Not just because it rejects realism, but because of how interesting the main dungeon looks. While I'm not a fan of climbing up all these steps, each block of Tartarus is unique, from generic hallways to gold scattered floors, horror-themed areas, and even a disco block. It keeps me engaged, and the same applies to the Abyss of Time. The graphics for the PSP port aren't bad, the low poly look is actually fine, and the models are structured well. Now, due to storage limitations, they couldn't import the FMVs or reanimate them with Kotane. While there is a project to reanimate these scenes with her, I don't like the in-engine cutscenes in Portable. They're pretty stiff and lack the punch needed for key scenes. The Awakening scene, for example, is lackluster. Thanatos is supposed to be a real savage, but he just looks like he's slapping around the Magician Arcana. This is disappointing, especially since there are plenty of tricks in visual novels to make scenes more impactful. While I personally think Portable is the best way to play this game, something is definitely lost in translation. The visual novel style works for other cutscenes, but losing the FMVs for the female protagonist is unfortunate and is not the law of equivalent exchange. The English voice work got a significant upgrade. Yuri Lowenthal, Vic Mignogna, Grant George, Tara Platt, Michelle Ruff, Paula Tiso, and Liam O'Brien, all of them deliver fantastic performances. Liam O'Brien in particular is outstanding. Watching Akihiko scene at Shinji's memorial is a masterclass in voice acting in my opinion. While he occasionally channels Gaara a bit too much, his breakdown is one of the best delivered lines. Everyone else also brings their A-game, from Junpei's cocky tone to his reaction to Chidori's death, Shinji's death, Aigus at the end, and Nick's avatar's iconic speeches. Even Ken's English actor, who isn't credited for some bizarre reason, I think I know who voiced him, but still, they did a great job. That's what I'm trying to say. For the Japanese voice acting, everyone is perfect, though they sometimes mumble, making it hard to understand. The cutscenes that impacted me in English had an even stronger effect in Japanese, though the only actor I did not like was Junpei's actor, voiced by Toriumi Kosuke-san. It's something against him personally, I just have a preference for a different tone and voice. Finally, with the music, I don't know what I was thinking in my original video, but these songs are amazing. And that's saying something since I honestly hate the rap genre. But Mass Destruction is a fantastic fucking song and it's great for the battles. Lotus Juice, he is a phenomenal rapper and his collaboration with Karomura Yumi-san is fantastic. With composition from Meguro Soji-san, the one who composed the controversial tracks in Persona 1's remaster, it creates the perfect soundtrack in my opinion. I've already mentioned Mass Destruction, but Kotone's battle theme, Wiping All Out, is fantastic as well, distinguishing them both on a character aspect, but I cannot forget about the boss themes. While a little repetitive, they're great for establishing the threat of each boss, especially with the final boss theme and the journey. The battle for everyone's souls is a perfect climax to the story. Just staring down the avatar with the song playing is one of the best moments I've had in my gaming experience. But the best of the best in terms of the soundtrack is Memories of You, the credits theme. It's one of my favorite credits theme of all time, and I've listened to it more times than I'm willing to admit when driving home from work. While I wish the in-game models had cell shading, the FMVs, character stills, voice work from both the English and Japanese sides, and the amazing soundtrack is what makes Persona 3 Persona 3. But before we wrap up the video, we do have something extra to go through. So let's talk about the movies.
好きだ。
何やってるの？命かかってるんだよ。死にたいの？
どうでもいい。
え？
死ぬってそんなに怖いこと？
I won't spend too much time on them, but as a substitute for the games, they're fine. They're split into 4 separate films: Spring of Birth, Midsummer Night's Dream, Falling Down, and Winter of Rebirth. Each movie running for about an hour and a half to an hour 45. These films obviously provide an abridged version of the game's story, condensing around 80 hours into close to 8. For what it's worth, they do a decent job of this, but it's definitely not perfect. For starters, I don't like the brighter colors used during the dark hour. The atmosphere here just doesn't feel right to me. This could be my bias towards the original game's FMVs, which again, to me will never be topped. Point Pictures did an excellent job with the FMVs in the game, especially in their coloring and framing, making scenes like Orpheus' awakening and Shinji's death some of the best moments. Unfortunately, the movie's approach to the dark hour just didn't capture that same eerie atmosphere. That said, the movies do set up certain elements better than the game, such as Junpei's feelings of inferiority, Shinji's struggle with his persona, Ken's desire for revenge, and since they made Makoto a more fleshed out character, his development from a nihilist to someone who appreciates life. I especially love how the movies show Makoto starting to worry about the dark hour disappearing, considering it brought him his friends. However, I wish this was a TV anime instead, because the social links are definitely crucial. The game's theme revolves around the bonds we make, and while the movie covers Cease and Ryoji's bonds, it's just not enough for me. When Persona 4 got its anime adaptation, it was a TV anime that allowed for filler episodes exploring Yu's social links. Makoto's links are in the movies, but he doesn't spend much time with them. Hell, I'm not even sure if he boots up Innocent Sin Online. Admittedly, I did skim through random parts of the movie, but it just feels like his social links were shortchanged. The biggest flaw in the movie series is having the group's personas reawaken at the end of the last movie, rather than at the original points in the game. While adaptations often move things around, these moments felt perfect in the game and feel empty in the films. It feels like they just forgot to include the reawakening scenes and added them in at the last minute. Despite these issues, if you do want to watch the movies, they are available for rent or purchase over on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure where else you can actually stream them legally. At one point, Midsummer Night's Dream was on Netflix, but only that one for some bizarre reason. Look, legal anime streaming can be hard to keep up with, and that's why I don't even bother anymore unless I can get a physical copy. Even then. When taking an account of story, characters, gameplay, graphics, and sound, Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3 gets a 10 out of 10! This is my favorite video game of all time, and the story is the biggest reason on why, as it did have a big change on my life, to appreciate my friends and family a little bit more. It's kind of ironic considering how introverted I am, but hey, I still love this game and how it's crafted. Trust me, you're missing out if you've never played this game. These characters are fantastic, the design is perfect, presentation could be a little bit better, and not to mention the AI-controlled party and vanilla and FES, but this is a game I will always recommend to someone if they are at all curious on the Persona series, because this is a great starting point. I don't have much to say in this end section this time around other than this. I'm no longer asking, I'm demanding you to play this game. Seriously, if you want to go about it legally, the vanilla port is only available on PS2, although FES is not just on that, but the PS3's PSN for, as long as I will stay up. Portable is on the PSP, both physically and digitally, though I think the PSP's PSN has shut down. I think it's also on Vita, so yeah, I think that store is still up. But hey, you can get portable on pretty much all modern systems as of 2024. PC, Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Series X for only $20 American. It really doesn't take much, but there is a mod for the FES port called Full Moon that gives a serious overhaul to the gameplay. If you don't mind sailing the high seas, then boot up PCSX2 and just play this game. Seriously, you cannot go wrong with this game. My complaints are overshadowed by the amazing story, one that gets me every time I decide to look up the cutscenes. No matter if it's MC or FEMC, the social links, for the most part, are fantastic side stories that add a lot to this game. Take your time with this, because this is definitely one game you should really play before your time comes. Hell, it may even be a great supplement to any religious beliefs you may or may not have, as this game is special. Well, at least special to me. I may have wanted to play Persona 4 when I first got this game, but I'm glad 3 was my first Persona game. Though at the end of the day, yeah, we're done with the Endless Tower. Now, Reload was just recently released at the time of writing, but the next video is not about it, as I want to treat that game like I've never played Persona 3 in my life. So yeah, I'm saving that for the second to last video in this marathon. Hopefully playing everything else will wipe my memory of this game, but considering how much I love this game, I highly doubt it. I will ask y'all not to spoil things for me, because I do got 7 more games and an anime to go through. I did play a small amount of that game at a friend's house, though that was sometime during the middle of the game, but that's about it. I don't think it'll be the definitive way to play this game, but I will judge for myself when I boot it up. At this point in time, the series did get an anime attached to it, and it was released before Persona 4, so it's unfortunately time for that. Although I will have a doubleheader for you guys next time around, because the remake is slated for this year, so I'm finally going to play Silent Hill 2, especially since I own it physically, complete in box, because I make poor financial decisions. It was $150. In the meantime, my friends, please like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with anyone and anything. That includes her next door neighbor, Angela Orozco, and I'll see y'all next time with Persona Trinity Soul and Silent Hill 2. Take care.